وعلیکم دوستوں، محبوب علی کروڑو آپ کی خدمت میں ایک بار پھر حاضر۔ آج پراؤڈلی ہم آپ کو ایک آرگنائزیشن، ایک چیریٹی سے ملوانے جا رہے ہیں جس کا نام ہے امرا۔ اور امرا سے کیا بنتا ہے؟ یہ بنتا ہے انٹرنیشنل میڈیکل ریلیف ایجنسی۔ اچھا، ان کا کام میں آپ کو بتاؤں۔ ان کا کام کیا ہوتا ہے کہ یہ چیریٹی جو ہے یہاں پہ فنڈز جمع کرتے ہیں، یو کے اندر فنڈز ایونٹس کرتے ہیں، اور ان پیسوں سے پاکستان کے اندر جو ہے وہ جو غریب نادار لوگ ہیں، جو بچے پیدائشی طور پہ سماعت سے محروم ہوتے ہیں، یعنی کہ گونگے اور بہرے پیدا ہوتے ہیں، ان کو یہ ایک کوکلیئر امپلانٹ کے نام سے ایک آلہ آتا ہے جو کہ فٹ کیا جاتا ہے ایئر کے پیچھے یہاں پہ سرجری کر کے، اور اٹس ویری اسپیشلسٹ اور ویری ایکسپینسو سرجری، اور وہ ان بچوں تک مفت میں پہنچتی ہے۔ اس کے پہلے تو اس کا اسٹارٹ کراچی سے ہوا تھا، پھر انہوں نے ایکسپینڈ کیا میرپور خاص تک، اب یہ جو ہے نا لاہور اور اسلام آباد تک جا رہے ہیں آہستہ آہستہ۔ تو دوستو، میں آپ کو یہ بات بتاتا چلوں کہ اس چیریٹی کا جو کام ہے وہ ایک انسانیت کے لیے ہے، ان انسانوں کے لیے ہے جو کہ ہمارے معاشرے کے اندر، ہمارے کمیونٹی کے اندر معذوری کے طور پہ پہچانے جاتے ہیں۔ ان کا یہ کام ہے کہ ان کی معذوری ختم کر کے ان کو نارمل زندگی میں جو ہے نا وہ لے کے آتے ہیں۔ اور آپ یہ بتائیں اس بندے کے لیے یا اس کے ماں باپ کے لیے یہ کتنی بڑی نعمت ہے اور کتنی بڑی خوشی کی بات ہے، اور ان کی دعائیں جو ہیں وہ میرے سمجھ میں کہ کبھی بھی ختم نہیں ہوں گی ایسے لوگوں کے لیے جو ان کے لیے یہ کام کر رہے ہیں۔ اب جو کوکلیئر امپلانٹ ہے اس کی قیمت کیا ہے یہ میں آپ کو بتاتا چلوں۔ اس کی قیمت جو ہے وہ $20,000 ہے، اور یہ تقریباً 18,000 پاؤنڈس بنتے ہیں، جو کہ پاکستانی روپیز میں جو ہے وہ 40 سے 50 لاکھ کے درمیان اس کا خرچہ ہو جاتا ہے۔ اس کے لیے اسپیشلسٹ ڈاکٹر تیار کیے جاتے ہیں یہاں پہ یو کے میں، جو کہ پھر پاکستان سے بھی کچھ ڈاکٹروں کو منگواتے ہیں اور ان کو یہاں پہ تیار کرتے ہیں اس کو امپلانٹ کرنے کے لیے۔ ابھی تک 104 جو ہے یہ امپلانٹ ہو چکے ہیں وہاں پہ کوکلیئر امپلانٹ پاکستان کے اندر، میجارٹی کراچی اور میرپور خاص میں۔ اب جو ہے انہوں نے ایکسپینڈ کیا لاہور اور اسلام آباد میں۔ تو دوستو، ہماری گزارش یہ ہے کہ اس چینل کو آپ سبسکرائب کریں، دوسروں لوگوں کے ساتھ شیئر کریں، آپ خود اس میں انوالو ہوں، اس ایجنسی کے لیے، اس آرگنائزیشن کے لیے، اس چیریٹی کو سپورٹ کریں، اس کو فنڈز کریں۔ آپ نہیں کر سکتے، آپ کی وسعت نہیں ہے تو اس کو فارورڈ کریں، کسی اور لوگ کے پاس شیئر کریں، تاکہ کوئی نہ کوئی، اگر کسی نے 10 روپے بھی دے دیے اس کے اندر تو سمجھو اپنا ہدیہ، اپنا جو ہے وہ نیکی اس میں جو ہے نا وہ شامل کر دی۔ تو ہم آپ کو اس پروگرام کے اندر بہت سارے ڈاکٹروں کے انٹرویو بھی دکھائیں گے، پریزنٹیشنز بھی دکھائیں گے، اور پھر ہم آپ کو موسیقی کا مذاق بھی جو ہے نا وہ دکھائیں گے۔ تو انشاءاللہ آپ ہمارے ساتھ رہیے گا اور یہ سب کچھ دیکھتے رہیے گا۔ کچھ اس میں انگلش ہوگی، کچھ اردو ہوگی، یا کچھ ملی جلی ہوتی، لیکن یہ کہ آپ کو دیکھنے میں مزہ آئے گا، آپ اس کو دیکھیے گا پلیز۔ اللہ حافظ۔
Director Cochlear Implant Program for IMRA. He's consultant ENT and auditory implant surgeon. He's a graduate of Manchester and has done his fellowships in UK and gold medalist in audiovascular medicine also. He's a super specialist in ear and skull-based surgery and has trained all over the UK, in Canada, the United States and Australia. He helped set up and is the director of the world's largest humanitarian cochlear implant program, running for nearly 10 years through the IMRA charity. He's based in James Cook University Hospital, Middlesbrough. Mr. Noweed Ahmad is a world record-breaking cochlear implant surgeon who recently hit the national and international headlines, operating on the world's oldest cochlear implant patient while he was away. So please welcome Mr. Noweed Ahmad on the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, good evening to my respected guests. It's a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to be here. I think we've done this event a few times in Manchester. I see some new faces, and I see some faces who are very welcome, repeat offenders. Now, everyone's talking about cochlear implants. Everyone's saying, yes, cochlear implant is great. The charities has this program going, but I know many of you may be wondering, what on earth is a cochlear implant? So part of my job today is to explain what this amazing, wonderful technology really is. It is life-changing, it's revolutionary, and I can say hand on heart, and I'm not biased, it's probably one of the greatest medical inventions done by man, and you'll see why. Right, so in Pakistan, nearly 2 children in 1,000 are born with very severe hearing loss. This is the type of hearing loss which even a hearing aid would not work on. Right, here we are. So, as you can see on the left side here, this is a hearing test, and you can see on the graph where the hearing is. The hearing should be up near to 0. However, in a child like this, if you gave them a hearing aid, they will grow up not being able to hear properly and not being able to speak. So, as you can see, there's a very fundamental and important basic principle, and that is to be able to learn speech, you need to be able to hear the speech. Without being able to hear properly, you will not learn how to speak properly. Now you can imagine what kind of effect that's going to have on a child's life. This child is born, they've got a severe hearing loss. The hearing aid does not give them enough for them to be able to speak. What we put inside, and it goes right down into the cochlea, and the bit on the outside is the transmitter and the speech processor. Next. So the sound hits the processor, it then sends a signal to the implant on the inside, which has no battery, it's powered from the outside. And then the signal goes down to your inner ear, and then it stimulates your hearing nerve, the cochlear nerve, and then the signal goes to your brain. So right now, the way you're hearing me is through signals going through your inner ear, along your hearing nerve to your brain, and you're understanding me because you've learned the language. A child who's born deaf would not be able to understand me. Next. Now, what can a cochlear implant do that a hearing aid can't do? Well, if you look at the red circles at the bottom, that is a profound hearing loss. A hearing aid will not be able to give you enough amplification to get you to hear enough. So next. So the cochlear implant will push your hearing all the way up to where the green circle is. It is truly amazing. From someone who has no hearing to hearing which is normal, effectively. That green circle is a person who can hear a whisper. Next. Now, what I was going to say was most of our patients are old in the UK. So the oldest patient previously to have had an operation was in California, was 102 years old. On his 103rd birthday, Leslie came into my clinic and said, "It's my 103rd birthday and I want a cochlear implant." Now, of course, we had to make sure that he really did need it, and of course he did. He'd done all his research, but the majority of our implant candidates, the majority of our patients are the elderly. They're in their 80s, late 70s, 90s. The oldest person in Europe to have received a cochlear implant was 99. And then this gentleman turned up in our clinic in Middlesbrough, and should we go to the next slide? I'll just tell you a bit more about him. Thank you. So he's not only deaf, he's also blind. And he's incredibly isolated. All his family have died. He's outlasted all of them. He's outlasted his friends by 30 to 40 years. He cannot make any new friends because he can't see them and they can't make themselves understood. He can't understand what they're saying. This is a man who was born in World War I, who worked in a munitions factory in World War II. He had a previous operation as a child 97 years ago. And the anatomy was all over the place. It was very challenging. So he actually needed a subtotal petrosectomy, which normally takes 4 hours, and a cochlear implant, which takes another hour. And because he was so old, we had to do it while he was awake. So we had to do a 4 to 5 hour operation in 2 hours. And I'm very pleased to say this happened in April, and he's still alive and with us. Thank you. So this is next. So this is him. Extremely brave, amazing man. Next. And this is him at switch on. He's giving the 2 thumbs up, and he's extremely happy. On the computer behind you can see the levels, and he's hearing at normal levels. His hearing is actually better than a lot of the people in this room. As I said, he was living in a cocoon of silence. This is covered by the BBC. Next. Next. So ITV, next. Sun, Telegraph, the Mirror, all of them. So as you can see, it really hit the world headlines. It was in France, everywhere. But the key thing I wanted to say was, you are never too old to have an implant. And this is a health message for all of our older, respected people in the room. Get your hearing tested, and you're never too old to have this operation. Right, next. We're focusing on children. Why? Because the older people have already learned to speak, but the children have not. And that's why it's so crucial that we get these implants into these children. In England, these children are offered bilateral right and left ear implants. As I said, pretty much up to the age of 1 and higher. However, in developing countries like Pakistan, they are not offered any such treatment. Next. And this is just a zoomed in. You can see there's an implant on both sides. It's an X-ray. Next. Now, originally in 2012, when Dr. Haroon, mashallah, you look just as young as then, 9 years ago, Dr. Haroon contacted me, and he said to me, Noweed, we didn't really know each other, and he rang me when I was in Australia, and I was doing some specialist training on cochlear implants. And he rang me out of the blue, and he said, Noweed, do you do cochlear implants? I said, yes, I'm doing those. And then he goes, right, I want you to start or help us set up our cochlear implant program. And I said, yeah, sure. Where's that? And he said, in Pakistan. And I was like, okay. And then I said, but where in Pakistan? And he said, in Karachi. And I went, no way. I mean, that is just, back in 2012, wasn't it? 2013, I think 135 doctors had been kidnapped or killed just in 1 year. And when he approached me, I thought, he's gone a bit crazy here. He wants me to go all the way to Karachi, which at that point was one of the murder capitals in the world, and he wants me to set up a cochlear implant program. So the first issue was to do with security, and I just thought to myself, oh gosh. And I still remember, you have to go to my dad's house, and you have to persuade him to let me go to Karachi. Now, but he had an ace card up his sleeve. I happened to be married to someone from Karachi, and it knew I had to go and see my in-laws. So that's how it worked. Anyway, next. So to set up a cochlear implant program is unbelievably difficult. Even in the United Kingdom, a first world country, there were only 3 to 7 programs up to the late 90s. We have only now got up to 20 hospitals where these implants are done. 20 out of 450 to 500 hospitals. It is extremely difficult to set up a cochlear implant program. If he'd said to me, yeah, I want you to do some normal ear surgery, I would be like, yeah, no problem. But when he said cochlear implantation, I honestly thought it would be impossible. Next. Why? Because of the 4S challenge. It used to have 5S. First one, security. But the 4S challenge, the first one is each implant is £15,000 or 20,000. I mean, it's difficult to get £10 out of people to pay for cataract surgery. And here we want to put a device that's £15,000 per patient. The next thing is you need a very specialist surgeon who can do this operation. There's not many, even in the UK, less than 30, 40 surgeons who could do this operation. You need very specialist equipment and you need a specialist team to make that implant work. Next. So that was the first bit. It's extremely expensive. And I honestly thought it would be next to impossible to put in more than 2-3 implants, and then we'd run out of donors and funding, etc., etc. Next. The other thing is, next, is the cost of the program. So a microscope today is about £100,000. We've got a more advanced one in our hospital, which costs £350,000. Now, which country in the world can afford this type of stuff? Only first world countries. So it's no fault of Pakistan that they've not got a cochlear implant program. It is extremely difficult, extremely difficult. You need a surgeon who's trained for 19 years to put these implants in. And it costs £5 million to do that. Next. The surgery itself is very difficult. Now, what I'm showing you here is a mastoid. Now, top to bottom, that is only 2 centimeters. That's 2 centimeters. That's where you're operating. And this is with a microscope view. You have to drill past the facial nerve and in front of the facial nerve. You get it wrong by even 0.5 millimeter, and the person will be paralyzed for the rest of their life. Next. Then you've got to find the gap behind the ear canal. Next. That's the gap you've got to find, but still you can't see where you need to put the implant. Next. Finally, you've got to drill right past, close to the facial nerve to see the opening where you need to go. Now that opening there is 1 millimeter. It's 1 millimeter in size. Yeah, next. Yes, and the drill that you're using is 75,000 RPM. You're using a 75,000 RPM to drill a 2 millimeter gap to get down to a 1 millimeter hole, which is on a curve, and you need to put the implant through that curve, and the implant is flexible like spaghetti. So that's why it's a challenging operation, not for the faint-hearted. Luckily, I love to take risks, but luckily not with the patients. Okay, next. So this is, if you're a bit queasy, you don't need to watch this, but this is basically an implant being put in. So that's less than a 1 millimeter hole, and that's me putting a cochlear implant in there. Below you've got the facial nerve, above you've got the bones of hearing, and that's the opening into the cochlea. Next. And that's what it looks like on an x-ray. Your cochlea is truly beautiful. It's like a seashell, and that's it curled up inside the seashell. This patient will be able to hear, and they'll be able to hear better than you. Next. So the other thing was the Superspecialist Team. So we needed surgeons, theatre staff, audiologists, speech therapists. As I said, there's only 20 hospitals in this country that has this kind of infrastructure. And I said to Haroon, we are not going to be able to do this program unless we have the infrastructure. Next. So this was the 4S challenge, and I thought to myself, this is not feasible. But then, next. I looked at my own children, and I thought, if it was my children, and there was a surgeon somewhere in the world who could have treated my children, who then turned around and said, this isn't feasible, how would I feel? How would I feel? And I thought, we need to at least try. Next. So the principle of the program from day one has been quality over quantity. We will not compromise on the surgery, on the team, on the implants. Every single implant is done exactly how we do it here in the United Kingdom. We will not compromise. And we thought to ourselves, instead of doing lots and lots of implants which fail, we would rather do fewer implants of good quality. Next. So what we've done is we made sure that our audiologists are trained from the UK. We brought them over to the United Kingdom for training. We brought the speech therapists over for training. I go across and we train probably the most highly skilled ear surgeon in Pakistan, Dr. Shaukat Malik, who was very modest, mashallah. In addition to that, the surgery is done exactly how we do it in the United Kingdom, exact. And then finally, the care that this patient received, for 2 years minimum, they received speech rehabilitation. And without that 2 years, the implants are likely to fail. So people have tried to do implants in Pakistan, but unfortunately they've not been successful because they haven't put in the 2 years worth of hard speech rehabilitation. Next. So we are guided actually by the National Institute of Clinical Excellence guidelines. That's what we use to put these implants in. Next. These have been recently updated, 2019. Next. So this was our first patient in December 2012. It was like a dream come true. We finally got to the point where we could implant someone. And fast forward 9 years, next. We did our 100th implant in December 2021. So where initially we thought this program was unfeasible, where we thought it was impossible that we would raise enough money to even put in more than a handful of implants. 9 years later, we were on to our 100th implant. And that was thanks firstly to God, and secondly to all the people He sent like you to support this program. And really, I think you all deserve a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. This would not have been possible without your support. 100 implants, 15 to 20,000 pounds each. Absolutely amazing. Next.
मेरा नाम फैदा है, मेरा नाम कराची से और मोहम्मद अहमद मेरा बेटा है, ये मेरा पहला बेटा है और हमें तकरीबन 8 महीने में जाके हमें पता चला कि इज़ हार्ड ऑफ हेयरिंग। तो हमें खैर समझ नहीं आता हम क्या करें। खैर मेरे एक अंकल हैं यूके के अंदर, वो डॉक्टर हैं पीट्स के, उनसे बात हुई। उनके एक दोस्त हैं डॉक्टर हारून, तो वो कुछ सोसाइटी वगैरह उन्होंने हमें बताया कि इस तरह वो सोसाइटी रन कर रहे हैं। तो खैर हमें तो बिल्कुल आइडिया नहीं था, हमने पहली दफ़ा ही नाम भी सुना था इमरा सोसाइटी का। खैर फिर हमने इसको सर्च किया और भी और चीज़ें हमने देखी साथ में। फिर हमारी डॉक्टर हारून से बात हुई, डॉक्टर हारून से बात हुई तो हमें काफ़ी सेटिस्फेक्शन उनका लगा, मतलब अंदाज था बताने का और इन्फॉर्मेशन देने का, तो वो काफ़ी अच्छा था। मतलब हमें सुकून मिला कि हाँ यार हमें शायद कोई सही चीज़ मिल रही है, हाँ यहाँ से इन्फॉर्मेशन सही मिल रही है। फिर उन्होंने जो इन्फॉर्मेशन हमें दी फिर उस हिसाब से हमने उसको लेके चले। हमको शुरू में 5-6 महीने उसको हेयरिंग एड लगे और हेयरिंग एड से उसका रिस्पॉन्स काफ़ी बेहतर था। तो हमारा मतलब उनसे यही सवाल होता था बार बार कि जब हेयरिंग एड से अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स आ रहा है तो फिर हम वाई डू वी गो फॉर कॉक्लियर इम्प्लांट। तो खैर उन्होंने फिर हमें बताया कि इतने अरसे में इसको इतनी चीज़ें आ जानी चाहिए थी या इतने इसको बराबर आ जाना चाहिए था, इसकी स्पीड स्लो है हेयरिंग एड के साथ। پھر ہم نے ڈیسائڈ کیا کہ ٹھیک ہے اگر ہیئرنگ ایڈ سے اتنا کوپ اپ نہیں کر پا رہا, ہم چاہ رہے تھے کہ ہمارا بچہ نارمل بچوں کی طرح اسکول جائے اور نارمل بچوں کی طرح لائف اسٹائل ہے, مطلب کوئی اسپیشل نیڈ نہ ہو اس کی. تو پھر ہم نے اس کو فائنلائز کیا کہ ٹھیک ہے ہم کوکلیئر امپلانٹ کی طرف جائیں گے. بس آج ہم یہاں آئے ہوئے احمد کا آپریشن ہے.
So you can see how stressful this is. You can see he's beautifully explained in Urdu the journey. Many children are told they'll get fine. But while they're told they'll get fine, you lose the chance to give them that cochlear implant. You know, many children are brought to us at age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 17, 21. And by that point it's too late. And it's a real tragedy. Our aim in our program is to try and reach every single child, and every child for them to be treated for their hearing loss. It's difficult, but hopefully one day we will achieve that. Now this is an expansion of the program. We were in Karachi, we were in Lahore, and now we are in Islamabad as well. This is at the PAF hospital in Islamabad. We've got an assessment of a mother with a child, and the whole team's there. We have people learning as well, student doctors in the background as well. Dr. Haroon, you're looking a little bit bored there. What's going on? Or were you slightly sleepy, jet-lagged? Yeah, I think so. We'll put it down to jet-lag. So anyway, that was me trying to explain in Urdu to the family about how important a cochlear implant is and why they need to continue with 2 years minimum of rehab afterwards. Right, next. This is the surgery occurring in PAF hospital. We have Professor Talat in the background there. Next. This is the whole team. In the center we have Professor Talat, who is a head of department. She's a wonderful colleague, and they were so excited to have us there in December of 2021. And that's the whole team, and we're training them up. We're going to go back again and continue their training. Next. This is the child again being assessed before the operation. Next. And this is the mother. She's going to tell us about the operation and the child.
मेरा नाम ज़ैनब है कि मेरा बेटा मोहम्मद इब्राहिम 2 साल का है, सिवियर टू प्रोफाउंड हियरिंग लॉस है. 1 साल से हियरिंग डिवाइस पे था. उसके बाद चूँकि हम इतना अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते थे कोक्लियर इम्प्लांट, हमें पाकिस्तानी एयरफोर्स यूनिट के प्रोग्राम का पता चला जिससे वो फ्री कोक्लियर इम्प्लांट ऐसे बच्चों को दे रहे थे जिनकी 2 साल से उम्र कम थी. तो काफ़ी कोऑपरेशन और रीअसेसमेंट के बाद मैंने इस बच्चे का केस ले लिया और इमरा के थ्रू इसका फ्री कोक्लियर इम्प्लांट जो है वो यहाँ पर करवाया है. मुझे कहा जाए कि इसको आप रेट करें तो मैं 10 out of 10 रेट करूँगी कि मैं यहाँ बहुत मूवमेंट होकर जा रही हूँ. काफ़ी अच्छा जो है यहाँ पर ट्रीटमेंट किया गया है.
So hopefully, over time this child will develop speech and become a full functioning member of society in Pakistan, inshallah. So this is at switch on, the same child. He's grown his hair. So he's at the switch on, and they're being told about how to look after the implant, and also the child is listening and hearing sound for the first time in their life. It's a truly amazing event. Next. This is the team. They're also being given the processors and the boxes, and they're being told about how to look after the implant. So we did 2 operations in Islamabad, PAF, in December 2021. Next. This is our 100th implant. So I wanted to share this amazing moment with you, this milestone in IMRA's cochlear implant program, the world's largest humanitarian cochlear implant program, free of charge implants. Yeah. My name is Dr. Noweed. I'm the ENT surgeon. My team, Dr. Staff as well here. We've got Dr. Sajid, who's our audiologist. Today is a very, very important day for the NGO.
the International Medical Relief Agency. We are at the IMRA Hospital, the National Medical Institute, and this in front of you right now is the 100th charity Cochlear Implant. We have the world's largest humanitarian implant program, and this is a dream come true because we never thought that we would be able to put such an expensive device into 100 poor, deserving children. And this right in front right now, you're seeing the 100th Cochlear implant. We're about to put that in. You'll see that in the next video. But
Great, thanks. And this is the child, the 100th child. That's his family. We're just telling them about how to look after the implant. This occurred in December 2021. The 100th implant in Karachi. Next. And this is the mother. She's just going to tell you a little bit about the child and their journey. Yeah.
हमारी वाली 2018 में जो माई फर्स्ट कजन मैरिज है 2019 में मेरा बेटा पैदा हुआ और विदिन अ मंथ मुझे आई प्रॉब्लम थी इसमें बेबी हुआ था। फिर हम बेसिकली नीमिया खाते हैं, वहाँ पे हमने इनिशियली बैरा टेस्ट करवाया और उसके बाद वहाँ मतलब नीमिया खान रिमोट एरिया है तो वहाँ इतनी हमें अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिली, तो हम यहाँ पे कराची है। कराची में हमें हमारे रिलेटिव ने इनका बताया, यहाँ बैरा टेस्ट हुआ और सब प्रोसेस से गुजर के 8 मंथ्स में इसको हेरिएट लगे और 2 ईयर्स हो गए इनकी थेरेपी को और अब इसका इम्प्लांट हुआ है। और मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ सर्जन की, मैम फराज की, ऑडियोलॉजिस्ट डॉक्टर आरू, चैरिटी मेंबर, इन सब ने हमारे साथ बहुत कोऑपरेट किया। इनकी वजह से पॉसिबल हुआ कि हमारे बेटे का इम्प्लांट हो गया। और जो चैरिटी डोनर्स हैं उनके मैं उनकी बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि उन्होंने चैरिटी दी, उनकी वजह से ये पॉसिबल हुआ है, वरना ये इतना बड़ा एक इम्प्लांट, इतना बड़ा प्रोसीजर ये आम बंदे की बस की बात नहीं है। अल्लाह ताला उनके रिस्क में बरकत डाले, उनको और तौफीक दे कि वो और स्टंट मिलते हैं ताकि और भी बच्चे हैं जो नीडी हैं उनकी मदद हो सके। इंशाल्लाह मेरे बेटे यही माशाल्लाह बिल्कुल इम्प्रूव हो जाएगी, तो ये नॉर्मल लाइफ जिएगा इंशाल्लाह, अच्छी एजुकेशन होगी, अच्छा आगे कारोबार करेगा या अपनी लाइफ में सेट हो जाएगा, इसके आगे अच्छी लाइफ होगी इंशाल्लाह। मैं इमरा सोसाइटी को बहुत थैंक्स कहती हूँ क्योंकि उनकी पूरी टीम की वजह से ये पॉसिबल हो सका कि हमारे बेटे का ये पूरा इम्प्लांट हुआ काम हुआ।
Right, so I think she says it far better than we could say it, but this is essentially a summary now. So in 9 years, 103 implants have gone in, and many implants in the UK have failed. There's been manufacturing faults in some of the implants, but alhamdulillah, I can't explain it. For some strange reason, all 103 implants that have gone in Pakistan, not a single one has failed. And that is nothing to do with us, that's someone's looking after us, someone's looking after us. Truly life-changing surgery. These children are now going to normal schools. They're not going to deaf schools, they're not being considered deaf, they are going to normal schools. They are part of their families, and we have now expanded from Karachi to Lahore to Islamabad, and we hope to continue the work, of course, with your support. Thank you very much. Any questions? So there was a lot to cover, I know, but if there are questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, you can always come up and ask any of us, inshallah. I think people might be getting hungry, yeah? Okay. There you go.